Hey everyone, welcome to Financial Revelations. I am David Safransky, your host. It is the end of the year. We have one more episode before the year is over. And it's been a great year. It's been a great year in the market. I've got some really nice Christmas gifts planned for myself. I'm not telling my wife about them. She doesn't need to know. She won't even notice probably. It's not another red car yet. But hold on that. You can always see me on Twitter at skibucks1. You could email us. All this stuff is running below here. We got a missions trip in March of 2025. We got a full boat, so you can't go with us, but let me know if you want to go on the next one, and let me know if you want to support the trip, because we are going to start building a church in the Amazon, and we need money for that, so we do need you to contribute. It's not that expensive, really, for a big building. It's going to be about $350,000. We have some money raised, but not enough. So you can go to nativosusa.org to check it out. I promised you, by the way, we had a winner for the gift card, but her situation was, they're dealing with a tough situation, so I juiced it a little bit, gave them a little bit more. So Merry Christmas to them. And they live in Apple Creek. I'm not going to share their names, but they know, so that felt good to do that. And if you listened to the radio last week, you know that there was a major announcement. I changed Chair Powell's name to Chair Foul, not as in the bird, but in the F-O-U-L. It's a foul. He should be fired. He should be fired. Yes. Demoted, made a private, peel some potatoes, park my car, that kind of firing. So we are planning a workshop for next year. I want to get you ready for that. It'll probably be in April, around tax time. That gets people's attention, right? So, hey, let's talk about the year in review. It's been a great year market-wise. Most portfolios, if not everybody's portfolio, is probably up whether you're here or not. You know, some of the little things that happened, the Super Bowl champion, Kansas City Chiefs. Well, everybody knew that. The World Series champion. Who won the World Series? That just happened not too long ago. The Dodgers. That was important because they beat the Yankees. Yankees suck. The Stanley Cup. I grew up playing hockey, so I'm somewhat interested in hockey. I never really loved watching hockey, but I love playing hockey. That was the Florida Panthers. And who won the WNBA championship? Well, the truth is nobody cares, so we're not even going to talk about it. So nothing sucks like the WNBA. And it doesn't matter if Caitlin Clark is involved. Can't support itself. Probably never will be able to support itself. I hope it does. I have nothing against it, but it's pretty bad. So what financially, 2024 was a really big year because we did see the crypto bonanza. Early in the year, Bitcoin was down to about $18,000. It topped out the other day over $106,000. That's a big deal. You know, I'm getting some work done at the house, and one of the contractors knows what I do, and he says, "So, what do you think about cryptocurrency? Should I buy it?" And I told him what I told everybody. There's no end use case scenario for it. So if you wanted me to pay your bill and I said, would you take crypto? You're going to say no. It's the same thing with gold. It's the same thing with silver. It's the same thing with platinum. It's the same thing with palladium. So I look at it now kind of as a risk asset. It's not really a hedge against inflation because it did not perform when inflation was at its highest, but neither did gold, so maybe it is. But if you wanted to put 5 or 6 or 8 or 9, 10% of your portfolio into crypto, I don't have a problem with that. People are definitely making money off of it, but when it goes way up, take some money off, okay? That's my interest rates did an about face. We came into the year with very high interest rates, and then, bam, all of a sudden in September, Fed Chair Powell said, oh, we're going to cut rates 50 basis points right in front of an election. That's not political now, is it? Now, They cut rates in December. We're in December. Okay, so they just cut rates last week. Now they're saying, well, we think we're going to take a pause. A hawkish press conference was given by Chair Powell. Like, oh my gosh, we were way too late and now we're way too aggressive. So I went back and I looked at all the rate cuts back to 2000. You know, when you get into like 2007, you see panic mode by the Fed. They know we're going into a recession. They're trying to stem the tide if they can. They're trying to do what they can. They're doing 50, 50, 50, 75. The way he talked at the press conference when he did 50 this time, September, well, we're not in a rush. Well, then you're political. So you're either in a rush and you're not political, or you're political and you're not in a rush. Whatever it is, I think it was wrong. They shouldn't have done that. There were 2 assassination attempts on a presidential candidate. I mean, that's a big... Remember, in Pennsylvania, if Donald Trump doesn't look at that chart, he is going to get shot square in the head. He turns his head to look at a chart and he gets shot through the ear. And then there was one on the golf course too. We don't really ever know anything about these people. We know more about the guy who, and I'm not, look, violence is wrong on any level. If that's your solution, nobody's listening to you, so you're getting frustrated and you choose violence. I'm not for that. Unless we go to war, then I'm all for violence. But violence against individuals for violence sake, like the healthcare professional that got assassinated in New York City, we knew more about his assassin within hours than we know about somebody who tried to assassinate Donald Trump. There's got to be some changes. I think the election in general, the Donald Trump election, is the biggest thing that's happened this year. And you can already see a change in the economic ethos of the country. He's out, and he is being fairly presidential. I really like this. We had the Summer Olympics. Summer Olympics were a big deal. They were in France. Of course, the Americans, we pretty much dominate the Summer Olympics. I love the Olympics. I love watching the Olympics. I don't like when it gets political. I wish it was apolitical in general. Whether I'm for it or against it, I don't want to see it be political. It's a great thing to watch people compete around the world, especially now. You don't have to be an amateur anymore to compete in the Olympics. And I don't think I love to see people compete, so it's a great thing. On the Supreme Court, we saw Chevron deference. We've seen some of the most epic, and I know I'm going to use a millennial word, epic Supreme Court decisions in the last year. Chevron deference is a lot like AI to me, artificial intelligence. We know it's going to be a big deal. We just don't know how yet. And so Chevron deference, what it did is it took the power, it basically neutered the federal agencies from making their own laws. You know, they're not elected officials. They can't make laws, but they do. And then they have their own judges and their own court systems, which, lo and behold, decide for the agency. That's over. So the EPA, neutered. The ATF, neutered. The FDA, neutered. It's going to happen. You're going to see this playing out. There's going to be a slew of cases now in the next year that come in front of federal court and get decided for the people and against these agencies. And I was just talking to somebody today about term limits. And yes, it would be nice to have some way of limiting. I mean, there's a lady in Congress who hasn't voted in 8 months because she's living in a memory care unit in a retirement community. That's the truth. So, but term limits, what they do is, let's say you can only serve 4 terms in Congress. And that happens. You serve your 4 terms. It's only 8 years. Behind those Congress people is really the unelected class of bureaucrats that know how the system works, and they get empowered. So if you're going to do term limits, you got to do employment limits for people that are in the bureaucratic class. Otherwise, and you would stagger them. You wouldn't have everybody coming out in 8 years. You would stagger them. But you cannot let those unelected bureaucrats have all the power. Otherwise, we are had. You just get another, you get another ATF or EPA, that they're rulemaking bodies that have all the power, and that works against you. We had the solar eclipse. Remember the solar eclipse? A lot of people forgot about that. That was a big deal. I loved that. I was sitting out on my front porch watching that. We had the removal of a sitting president from running to be reelected. He wanted to run to be, well, I don't know if he did or not, but the people around him did. John Kirby. John Kirby served very honorably in the Navy. He was an admiral in the Navy, which is their version of a general. I think he and Anthony Blinken committed treason. They're the ones that were making the decisions. When you read the Wall Street Journal's exposés on what was going on in the White House, it's very, very disturbing. And I think those two were responsible for a lot of the decision making. I remember that I think President Biden was flying home from Israel. It was a long overseas trip. It was a long flight. And somehow President Biden got in front of the press, and behind him, so President Biden standing here, and behind him on the wings are John Kirby and the Secretary of State, Anthony Blinken. And they keep catching each other's eyes. And you could see it. And I knew right then what was happening. This is long before he was taken off the ticket by the Democratic leadership, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, and probably President Obama were responsible for that. You could see what was going on. And I feel bad for him. I feel bad for President Biden. He definitely is suffering from something, and he was put in an untenable position. So in the market, it's been a great year. Palantir was one of the number one performing stocks. I've been talking about this company for a long time. You probably own it. If you don't own it, there's probably a reason why you don't own it. But we're gonna get more people involved in Palantir as we get opportunities to buy in. I have a lot of hope for the near term future. I think the market's going to be really good, because if we're cutting costs, it really does allow the market to strengthen, and we have an opportunity to bring down inflation to pre-2020 levels when Donald Trump was president the first time. Now, we had been trying to create inflation for a long time, so it wasn't really what Donald Trump was doing initially, but he did bring down energy prices quite a bit. That is a direct frontal assault to inflation, and I think we have the opportunity to do some of that again. I saw gas is expensive again. We could bring down those prices. Now, initially, it's going to be bad for oil companies. It's going to be great for refineries because we're going to be pushing more oil through. But eventually, it creates more business. It creates more opportunity. It creates more economic opportunity. And that's good for oil companies in general. So short term, a little weak on oil companies. Long term, it looks a lot better. I still love technology. I love the Magnificent Seven. I love large cap stocks. I love the S&P 100 more than I like the S&P 500. So I like the bigger names better than I like the smaller names. And, while Chair Powell is cutting interest rates, the 10-year Treasury is rising. I wish I had a great answer for this. But, when I don't know something, I'm going to tell you I don't know. We're still researching. I'm looking at all the angles, and I want to have more answers for you in 2025, but I don't know if I love this. We're trying to get rates down. The bond market is saying, wait a minute. Wait just a minute. We have something else for you. So I'm trying to find the silver lining on this, but I don't see it yet. I think the bond market is a little bit smarter than the Fed, and they're two different things. The Fed really controls when they lower or raise a rate, it's the overnight rate that they charge banks for loans. And the bond market is going to set the rates. The bond market is selling out of bonds. They think rates are going higher, and I tend to be with them. Now, as the yield curve steepens, and what that means is you get less interest for a short-term bond than you do for a long-term bond. And the greater that spread is, the steeper the yield curve is. Now, there is a point where that hurts the economy, but we're not there yet. And I think we could see a lot of great things. And we could see if we do cut costs and we do lower taxes and we do cut energy prices, you could see the yield curve kind of shift lower in general. Still keep the spreads where you get more money, you get more interest for a 10-year than you do a 2-year. So you got to keep those spreads, but you can move them all a little bit lower. And that's where I think we're going long term. So I'm excited for 2025. I'm going to the inauguration. I will be there. I'll have my Starlink Mini with me just in case all communications gets cut off. Maybe I'll do a podcast live from there. But be excited with me. I want you to have a Merry Christmas. I know I'm filming this. It's 2 days before Christmas. It's not too late to reach out to somebody, to help somebody out. Maybe somebody in your church is having a tough time at Christmas. Be generous. We're called to be a generous people. And I want you to be generous wherever possible. Wherever possible. I am David Safransky, a real American, a true red-blooded gun-owning patriot, and the voice you could trust.